I want to talk about something that accumulated in my body for a long time: anger. A few weeks ago at my church, our minister did something during the children's time that stopped me in my tracks, and she brought out a balloon. And she asked the kids if they ever get angry or feel big feelings and where they feel them in their bodies. So the kids started talking about being in their shoulders, in their jaws, in their tummies. And they were naming things like being treated unfairly, being teased at school, being left out of the game, someone being unkind or telling them what to do. And she just kept blowing air into the balloon. And she talked about it happening to grown-ups too. Like sometimes someone dismisses our needs or manipulates us, takes credit for our work, accuses us of things that aren't fair. And with every example, the balloon just got bigger. And everyone was watching and anticipating, holding our breaths as she blew into it, because we all knew what might happen. And one little guy yelled, "Hey, it might explode!" And then she asked the kids, "So what are some of the ways we can help these feelings move through our bodies and get them out?" And she started naming things that she likes to do, like talking to someone, asking for help, taking a deep breath. And she was letting some of the air out, just slowly and gently. And after asking the kids how to reduce the anger, of course, the balloon started to deflate. But that metaphor stayed with me because so many of us were taught that anger was dangerous, unchristian, unladylike, that good people are always patient, that mature people give grace, sacrifice for their loved ones, that ethical people stay neutral, logical, and calm at all times. Now, don't get me wrong, grace does matter. Context matters. We've all been misjudged. We've all been unfairly labeled at times. But here's what I had to reckon in with myself. Grace without equity is not safe. The unaddressed unbalance adds to the balloon, because it suppresses our healing, and it suppressed anger. It doesn't disappear, it just accumulates. And for people like me, and maybe like you, anger often has nowhere to go. There's no one to talk to. We explain it away, we justify what people are doing, we stay quiet so we don't become the problem, and we tell ourselves our anger is unreasonable. All the while we are witnessing unfairness, cruelty, and immorality. Oh, it's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet in the background, but it's got no outlet. Because we feel powerless, because we feel unsafe, because we know what happens to people who speak out. It feels good to let it out, but then it's dangerous. And watching the political unrest right now really has been filling my balloon. And I want to be really clear about something. I'm not angry because I think I'm morally, politically superior to anyone. I'm angry because I'm unfairness sensitive. And a lot of us are wired to notice when rules apply differently depending on who holds the power. When money or status buys exemption from accountability. When context protects the powerful but is denied to the vulnerable, or people who are more dependent, who feel they have to stay quiet. But over time, it fills their balloon. And when you're someone who has also learned to people please, to keep the peace, to stay likable, not to be abandoned, to survive by being agreeable, that combination can feel brutal in our bodies. Because staying neutral in the face of injustice doesn't feel neutral. We get sick because it feels like self-betrayal. And when I look back at the past traumas, the past unfairness, and how it landed in my own body, it wasn't just what others did to me, or when they refused to help me or show me they cared. The real harm I experienced was actually the resentment that I built towards myself for saying nothing, to not upset those I was attached or dependent on. The worst kind of anger for me was that I felt compelled to abandon some of my values in the face of unfairness just to keep the peace around me. And when we learn to silence ourselves for the comfort of others around us, we are hurting ourselves. When we silence our voice, we're treating ourselves unfairly. We even convince ourselves that, you know what, we're probably the problem. Nobody else is saying anything and they're telling me to be quiet. But our bodies, it accumulates this anger until it sneaks out against our will. That's why it's important to deal with it while it's smaller, because that resentment, that almost destroyed me. Until I did the work to let the anger out with people who cared enough to help me. Because at some point we all have to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror without anger just sneaking out. I've always had a sensitive and empathetic side. I was always helping people, but I wasn't always surrounded by like-minded people who would help me empty the balloon at what I saw. People pleasing meant staying silent to be with these people, which made that balloon bigger. I did it to myself. And every time you swallow your truth to keep others comfortable, your body is keeping the score. And eventually that rage grows, not because you're unreasonable, but because your body, your system is holding a growing history of witnessing harm or of being harmed in some way without feeling personal agency. Pleasing all those people, ignoring the balloons inside. We're just trying to stay safe, right? But the time you finally have to speak, that pressure sometimes is so high, kind of comes out sideways. It can be so embarrassing because now it's too intense, it's too sharp, it's too emotional because there's a lot. It's sort of kind of rotted in there. And then you tell yourself, see, this is why I have to be quiet. But that rage wasn't who you were ever meant to be. It was a reaction to an environment where people pleasing became the only way to survive, to be accepted. A huge part of my own recovery wasn't learning how to be calmer. It was actually letting myself get angry. First, I needed to forgive myself for staying silent for when I was shushed. I understand why I did it, but first I became feral, and it wasn't easy to find safe people to let it out at first. And you know what is under all that anger? Anger is sadness's bodyguard. Anger is the red flag that something terrible has gone wrong. The cost of not letting out the anger in the first place becomes self-erasure. You become invisible, and you paint on a smile for the comfort and pleasure of the people around you in an unjust system that isn't there to protect you, and it just delays the reckoning, the grief and the sadness, so that healing can really happen. And it's about naming these patterns, about equity, about power, about what you need. And it's about learning how to let the air out of the balloon before it pops. Talking is one way. Truth-telling is another. These lead to clarity and self-compassion. And the anger becomes a distant memory when we learn to manage everything in smaller increments. So if you've been angry and ashamed of the anger, maybe anger isn't the problem. Maybe your silence has been. But we have to figure out how to let it out safely. Find the honest and the loving people who will hold your hand and let you work that out while you learn not to people please. And it's okay if the air comes out a little squeaky and sideways at first, because the right people will listen and care and help, because you matter, and don't let anyone tell you differently.